All right, let's go on and bring Jeff Foote, Executive Vice President, Sustainability, Zero Tree, onto the show. Jeff, welcome back. How have you been?
Hey, Michael, I've been great. Thanks so much for having me on CEO Money again.
All right, my pleasure.
How are
you? I'm going to let Ed in on this conversation, too, because I know he's going to be all over some of the context or some of the talking points that you have. But let me back up and give you some forum, some room to maneuver on what it is that you wanted to talk about today, because you had some issues you wanted to bring out to the forefront, right?
Sure. Well, I'd like to give a real quick overview of what Treezero is, and I'd love to hit something that's historical, a current event, and then something that's going to impact business in the future, if that's okay with you guys.
Absolutely.
Great. Treezero is an Atlanta-based clean tech company, and we make paper products that are tree-free and that are carbon neutral. Today, our primary product is copy paper. We're primarily available through B2B at Office Depot, WB Mason, and Staples in the Southeast and New York City area. We're available basically where 70% of all the copy paper is sold in the U.S. And in fact, we're on sale for the entire month at retail at all 1,900 FedEx office locations through the end of December. Our company is really a mission-driven company, and really what we're trying to do is help our customers minimize the downsides of selling and using paper. And we're really active in helping invest in programs that fight deforestation. So if you think about what today is December 7th. And as President Franklin Roosevelt so eloquently and somberly declared, today's a date which will live in infamy. And each of us really should remember that more than 2,300 Americans were killed on this day 76 years ago, forcing the U.S. into World War II. But FDR was also famous for things that he did in the New Deal. In fact, programs that he implemented during the New Deal helped millions of workers and businesses in America successfully emerge from the Great Depression. In fact, prior to the attack on Pearl Harbor, and in fact, during his entire political career, conservation and stewardship of the environment were a major purpose in his life. In fact, during the New Deal, FDR strategically used stewardship of the environment really as a major tool to provide employment and mitigate a lot of the other major challenges that came up during the Great Depression. There's a great book out there by Douglas Brinkley, who's a professor at Rice University in Houston, and it documents FDR's environmental legacy. That book is called Rightful Heritage, Franklin D. Roosevelt and the Land of America. It's a fantastic read. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Roosevelt created 140 national wildlife refuges. He established 29 national forests and 29 national parks and monuments during his presidency. And one of his most famous New Deal agencies, the Civilian Conservation Corps, also better known as the CCC, was a 3 million man tree planting army. From 1938 to 1942, the CCC planted nearly 3 billion trees across the country. They built about 13,000 miles of trails, and they built or rehabilitated state and national parks across the country.
I get it. Now they're all cutting them down, and you're helping to resolve that issue on staying on the green side, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's really an important thing, not just to the environment. It's an important thing to the economy. Let me give you one more quick example from Roosevelt. You've all heard about the Dust Bowl, and the big causes of the Dust Bowl were deforestation, really poor farming techniques, and that caused drought, massive amounts of soil erosion, and crop failure. Roosevelt used the Forest Service to go out and build thousands of structures known as shelter belts. These shelter belts all across the Midwest were basically rows of trees that created windbreaks to enable the wind to stop blowing, stop erosion, stop the suck up of moisture by the wind. They planted about 22 million trees, and that really helped revitalize agriculture in the U.S. at the end of the Depression.
Jeff, it's Ed Baxter from Bison Creek Capital.
Hey, Ed.
I can kind of identify with that. My father-in-law actually owns 2 tree farms, and we've planted over 200,000 trees ourselves in the last probably 10 years or so. But we harvest them, and we harvest them in a responsible manner because obviously they grow pretty fast, to put it lightly. When you look at opportunities for using a fibrous type plant like sugarcane or something else for the creation of paper, what other fibrous crops out there do you think potentially could be a part of this?
Well, the primary fiber that works, in my opinion, the best is what's called bagasse, and that's from the manufacturing of sugar. So think if you on your property, in addition to all those trees that you're harvesting, and you were growing sugar, if you put 1 acre of sugar cane and planted it and processed it to make sugar, you'd only get about 265 pounds of sugar and have about a ton of material left over. That material is a cellulose material that have great fibers that make wonderful, wonderful paper, and that's what we're doing to make our paper.
We've seen the same thing happen with a couple other different types of trees. You don't know this, but I've been involved in a number of different, responsibility type transactions in the past where we did really off the grid type deals, including a trophy farm which uses a crush mass for biodiesel. Looking at other different types of plants like that, you mentioned the fibrous partners, a tremendous byproduct from that. What do you see as? Do you see that as your main product? Do you see incorporating others, or do you just see that one as the one that works the best?
Well, for us, right now we're in the copy paper business using bagasse. Early next year, we're going to get into some other products. We're going to go into other kinds of office supplies, notebooks, envelopes, note cards, food service type items. Certainly things like bamboo and hemp and NAF all can work for those as well. For us, from our performance standpoint, we think that bagasse performs as well, or it's certainly better than recycled paper, and as well as or in some cases better than tree paper.
Hey, Jeff.
I think
Jeff,
yeah.
let me interrupt for just a second. We need to pay homage to our paying sponsors. So let's take a break for now, and then when we come back, I want to hear about the Antarctica conversation you wanted to have, but I also want to zone in on Treezero and find out what's so great about your company, because you're the guy that's going to be able to tell us, all right?
Sounds great. Thanks.
You're welcome. We'll be right back on the other side of this break with Jeff Foote, Treezero, Executive Vice President, Sustainability, segment brought to you by Tycon Partners. Welcome back to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Jeff Foote, Executive Vice President, Sustainability at Treezero here. All right, Jeff, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, you're welcome. Okay. We were talking on the break about what you were saying about FDR and where the really the green movement got started with Teddy or F, going back and forth with that. But so we'll leave that there. But what I wanted to do is move forward. You had something you wanted to talk about when it came to the Antarctic, and then don't leave us hanging. We need to hear about Treezero. What are you doing in the future? Why people are coming to you to buy into your company? You know what I mean?
Great.
Okay.
Great. Perfect. So let me just real quick, as a current event, one of my best friends is a guy named Robert Swan. He was the first person crazy enough to walk to the South Pole and the North Pole. And as we speak today, he is 61 years old, and his son Barney, who's 23, are on day 16 of a 60-day expedition walking 600 miles to the South Pole.
Ugh.
It's called the South Pole Energy Challenge.
Okay. I hope he's doing it.
How do you walk to the South Pole? I mean, help me out with that one. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so basically what he's saying is that it's the harshest place in the world. It's, about 10,000 feet in elevation. It's where 70% of the world's fresh water is. And they're doing it without petroleum. They're using only renewable resources, solar, wind, and biofuels, advanced biofuels created by Shell to melt their ice to heat their tents. And their message basically is, if you can use renewable resources in Antarctica to travel 600 miles in about 60 days, you should be able to run your business, run your life on renewables in Dallas or Atlanta. So they're just trying to make a point. And it's about minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and these guys are making it. They've traveled over 100 miles, so I think 150 miles so far, and they're living just fine on renewables. So I wanted to just throw that out as a current event that we can survive and we can run our businesses on renewables, which then would bring me to Treezero. And really what we're trying to do is show you that there's a different way to make paper. Using trees is fantastic when the forests are managed properly, like, Ed, the way you guys manage your trees. But we think that there's huge value in using someone else's waste to make your paper. So we're using industrial waste from the sugar manufacturing process and making paper.
We've done it too. We've done wood pellet projects in the past too, where you take industrial waste from deforestation or wherever you want. In addition to the fact that we dug our trees up. Not every tree is available for harvest. So what ultimately happens is, let's say you have a tree that didn't, and it may get cut down anyway. So what happens is you can use it for wood products, or you can use it for wood pellets or other things like that. So there's a number of different opportunities there. As far as Treezero is concerned, I've noticed a trend here with regard to your need for conservation, moving to carbon zero type products. Kind of talk about Treezero's role in moving not just the paper industry, but the world to that direction.
Sure. Well, you make a great point about biofuel. So a lot of paper organizations are using their waste material as fuel. And in fact, the paper that we use, over 50% of the energy is coming from biofuels, from waste agricultural materials, which makes it's a great fuel, and it's a renewable resource. What we feel is that if organizations take a look at all the waste that's created from what they're manufacturing and think about what other uses for that material, it can make their businesses much more efficient. So what we're trying to do is ride the wave of, for example, there's a group called the CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project. They have just recently identified $29 trillion in investment in major companies around the world that have a risk to their business around deforestation. They're looking at palm oil, beef, paper and fiber, and timber as major impacts on deforestation and climate change, and starting to ask those companies, what are your risks in their business and what are your mitigation programs to make sure that you're not going to have a negative impact because of deforestation in your business. And what Treezero offers is a really simple, small response to that. If you use paper, we encourage you to use as small amount possible, but when you do print, when you do copy, we give you that tree-free carbon neutral option. And the way we got to the carbon neutrality, we measured from the growing of the sugarcane all the way to the recycling or disposal of our paper, and found out that a 5-pound ream generates 4.9 pounds of carbon. And we decided that we wanted to go and offset that. So we did a bunch of research, and we've negotiated an agreement with a group called Wildlife Works. Wildlife Works has programs in areas where there are big risks to deforestation. They work with the local communities to incentivize them not to cut down the trees for making charcoal for cooking and heating.
Jeff, I need to interrupt you. Jeff, I'm sorry I have to interrupt you. Our time is up for today. I want to thank you for being a guest on the show.
Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff Foote, Executive Vice President, Sustainability.